Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the channel. So today is the Champions Chess Tour recap from day one. It was the first 3 rounds of the round robin. So I'm going to go through some of the games and then go through all the results from today's play. So I've got a few awesome games to show you. So we're going to start off with Alireza Firouzja versus Levon Aronian. And it was a very interesting game, so let's have a look through it. And it was a Sicilian defense. Knight f3, d6, and d4. So an open Sicilian, we get takes, takes, the knight comes out, typical open Sicilian stuff. And we get a6. So Levon looks like he's choosing to go for almost like a knight off setup. So you will play this, get the bishop out like this. And the decision is, what do you do with the e-pawn? You go 1 square or you go 2 squares. So we get bishop to d3. And there we go. He chooses e5. The knight jumps backwards. Typically, so a6 was played so the knight can't jump to that square. So sometimes you go here, but Alireza elects to move his knight back to e2. We get bishop to e7, castles, bishop to e6, and then f4. So it's clear we want a kingside attack. So takes, you take with the knight to hit the bishop. You can take with this, and now this is a weakness. It's an isolated pawn. We get here, and yes, you would like 2 bishops, but you don't want to take and now strengthen the structure in the central pawns. So we allow the knight to come in, and we play this move a4, just restricting the play on the queen side. Castles, queen e1, and the queen's going this way, and we're going to attack. Although the position is slightly better for black. So rook to c8, a5, just occupying all the queen side space. You might bring a bishop in. This is a typical Sicilian move because you've opened the c file. So we see what happens here. The knight retreats, looking maybe for some better prospects elsewhere. Alireza jumps his knight to the center, and now he's really starting to squeeze Levon. So we get the bishop coming out, looking perhaps for a trade. Uh, Alireza moves his darksword bishop. The knight is still protected. And now Levon finishes his plan, bringing the knight to c5. Hits this bishop, hits this pawn, so we'll see what happens in the future. There is a way where you can try and win a pawn here in the center. So we get queen to g3. The bishop attacks the queen. Queen slides over to e3. A little bit weird maneuver here, but it does get the queen nice and centralized. And we get the bishop coming here. So it is an offer for a draw. If you go here, here, and the queen slides back 1 square, and the bishop slides back. And now we get this move b4, just trying to remove the knight, and the knight retreats. Could have taken the bishop, but this bishop is very passive. Like, there's no need to try and take it. It's stuck behind 2 of its own pawns. And then we get here h3. Rook to e8, rook to f2. And we're going to double, and eventually we will try and break through on this side of the board. But it's very cramped. You can see all these pieces occupying the center of the board, like some weird shape. Almost looks like a gun of sorts if you hold it sideways. Oh, way too far. Now I've gone all the way back. Okay, so here. Bishop slides back, b5. The knight retreats. h4, just preventing the bishop coming this way. Rook e8, rook f2. This knight retreats, hits the bishop retreats, and now we get snap take 1, take, and take. So, Levon has grabbed himself a pawn, but what's that pawn worth grabbing? Because you can take, the rook has to take, and now the bishop hits the rook and hits f7. So we throw that pawn forward, and now Alireza is winning, and like the Terminator, queen here, threatening to take with check and then take the rook. So the knight gets in the way, but now you take the pawn. The rook moves over a square. Apologies if you could hear that. The rook moves over a square to just prevent it being moved forward. The bishop retreats out of the way of this rook. The knight grabs the pawn, but you shouldn't have done that because now this rook comes in, and there's too many pins here. The knight does a retreat, offering the exchange of rooks. We get take, take, and we grab on b7. Now the rook can go there, but you've got too many back rank problems. The rook does go there, and you just slide over 1 square. The rook can't take. You've got way too many back rank problems. So it slides back to e8. Rook to f1. Rook to f8. See, Levon's kind of pinned in. His pieces have no activity. And the way this position traded, Alirez has just got two awesome bishops staring at the black king. So we get here, queen inviting an exchange of queens, which will result in a passed pawn, 2 squares away from queening. So the knight gets in the way, the queen moves. You can grab that pawn, but now look at this. Look at this. If you take, you can't take because if you take, it's bishop takes f7, rook f7, queen takes a3. It's the discovery. Whoop, sorry about that. Like for the lag, yeah, but it's the discovery, so you can't have that. So we get knight takes, the bishop moves, and then we get rook to e8, just stepping out of the way, but that does give up a queen with check, and then we take here on f7, we take the queen, and now we've just got an extra rook, so you can grab that. So we've got two pieces now for the rook, and a passive king, and here Levon Aronian resigns, Ali Reza wins. Okay, on to the next game, Jan Nepomniachi versus Wesley So. I'm just going to press play if you don't mind. And it was a very interesting game. So it started with an Italian from Jan, d3. Now, Wesley, typically in these rapid events, particularly last year, has been very, very strong. But Jan Nepomniachi, not someone to be messed with, has become very, very strong in the rapid format, is a former world championship contender. And here he just plays a very nice Italian game. So we can see Wesley, organizing his pieces as you should. Jan just takes space on the queen side. He's looking to maneuver his knights on the king side. He gets his knight into e4. And then we get the exchange of the light squared bishops. The knight gets kicked around a bit. Gets kicked all the way to a4, but it reroutes itself back to c3. And the pieces just become a bit delicate. Wesley does have a slightly better position, but this is always going to be slightly better for white. They're always going to be able to pose problems first. And the key is to find the way through. That is the key, to find the way through. Jan coordinating his position. He has given up now. Wesley to have the dark squared bishop. But Jan's starting to crash through a bit on the king side. And the nice thing about knights is there's still lots of pawns on the board. So that bishop is not feeling their game. Now Jan is worse. 100% he's worse. Wesley is completely winning here. And he sacrifices the rook because he gets it back. He gets it back. And now we get a queen endgame, but he traded the wrong way. And now he's still winning. He's still winning. It's about 2, but he had a much bigger advantage going into the queen trade. And he repeated moves too many times. And now Jan can get his queen active. And now he's going to cause problems. There's too many weaknesses. So we get that one. Check. The pawn comes in. Check. King moves up. There's no checkmate. You are going to escape. And you've got these two passed pawns. But I get to your king first. Look at that. And now check. It's now winning for white. White's just up. Was up. Is going to be up. You can't trade. There are always times where trading is the wrong way. But now we get check. And it's just mate in 3 moves. So Wesley So resigns. Denis Lazavik versus Vincent Keymer. Denis Lazavik had a fantastic day. So he defeats Vincent Keymer here in an English. I'm just going to blitz through the game to show you what happened. And it was interesting English. They traded off dark squared bishops. Keymer started pushing pawns in front of his king a little bit, but Dennis, who played these finals last year, finds very nice tactical shots here and there. So take the knight. The queen comes out. So we've got this position materials level, but we've got a bishop versus a knight, and this knight looks stupid, the fianchettoed knight. So the bishop just reroutes itself. We get a rook trade. It's still very much level until we get a little bit further on. The queens look to trade. Here we're offering a queen trade. It's a very symmetrical position, but the players keep playing it out. Lazavik trying, doesn't want to trade queens, doesn't want to trade queens, keeps pressing, keeps trying to find a way, harasses the knight, maneuvers his queen, and eventually, he's able to start getting a bit of a breakthrough. The knight finally, from where it was fianchetted over there, lands itself on a good outpost and forces the bishop back to f1. And we just keep going and going. Check. You have to give up the bishop, and now black is active. But Dennis sneaks a pawn and protects f2, which is important. The rook comes to harass here. There's no way really to defend it, but we offer a queen trade. So you take the queen and you push this pawn. And the key is you can go to defend it, but I take like this, and now offer rook trade. You cannot trade because this pawn will queen. So we give a check, and we go here and take. Now this should be able to be stopped, but we've got a 3-on-3 on this side, so it should be a draw. It should be a draw. The players have played very accurately, and that pawn gets all the way to a7, but it can't get any further. We take en passant, split the pawns, and now to be, can these pawns maybe get in? And we force the king. The king can't really move from these two squares because you will give a check with the rook and promote if the rook wasn't there. That's the thing. Because you're behind the pawn, this rook can never venture this way. So we're here. The king comes to try and win the race. And Keymer lets the king in. So he gives up that pawn, does Lazavik, but he wins this one. And now it's a 2-on-1 on the same side. It's going to be hard to win. A rook trade at the wrong time is losing for black. And he looks like he's made progress, but it's not easy, and you've got to try and win this. Eventually he does. It's now 1-0. If you trade the rooks, you lose as black, and the white king is really, the black king rather is really stuck. And eventually, now into the move 90s, almost like move 100, 98, move 99, move 100. This game goes long time before Vincent Keymer eventually makes a mistake, and the pawn gets through, and the pawn will promote. And Dennis Lazavik beats Vincent Keymer. But not only Vincent Keymer, Dennis Lazavik with the black pieces against Alireza Firouzja. They play in Italian. And just like the Nepo Wesley game, it's a maneuvering game. We get an early trade, Dennis giving up his light squared bishop for the knight. But his Alireza going to look to use his bishops, but they are totally blocked out the game. There's nothing for them. This king side is locked down, and Dennis is just better. And he keeps his advantage, and he keeps going. He gets the bishop back, so now we've got a bishops versus knights. But this is not like the previous game we saw. The bishops get traded for the knight, so now we've just got a bishop versus a knight, which depending on the endgame will suit one particular type of player. But the pawns stay on the board, so it's always going to be slightly better for the knight. There's still lots of pawns on the board. Dennis wins a pawn. Alireza is going for his king, but he can't get through. And these pawns now are coming down the board. And they come down the board indeed. Look at this. Just brought the king all the way up, brought these pawns forward, and we're going to get through. These pawns, which are two passes for white, never get really moving. And it takes a couple of moves. It's a very level position, but it's not easy to hold or to win for either side. And eventually, we get here. You have to give up the bishop. So now we've got a rook and a knight and a pawn versus a rook and three pawns, which is, 1 point of material extra for black. And you're going to try and push your pawns as white. And it should be a draw. Now it's just 3 pawns for the piece. But that piece sacrifices itself. And yeah, check. Check. This should never be winning for black. White is up a pawn. They're going to push that pawn through. But check, check. We're going to try. It should be a draw. And here, ladies and gentlemen, it ends in a draw. But this was the Armageddon game. Alireza needed to win with the white pieces. This was an Armageddon game. So Dennis Lazavik gets the draw and wins the game as black. But this is not the most shocking result. Wesley So versus Magnus Carlsen. I'm not going to show you this game. Wesley So. Oh, this is the wrong game. Whoopsie. What's going on here? Yeah, here we go. We jumped right to the end result, which spoils everything for you. But Wesley So defeats Magnus Carlsen in the first game. So we jump now to the second game. Magnus Carlsen must win with the black pieces. He must win on demand to force an Armageddon. And he was completely lost in the opening. We get here to Nimso Indian. It seems like normal. You give up the dark squid bishop, you develop your Fianchetto bishop here, and you plant your knight there in the central square. So we retreat the queen, and we keep going, and we're going to keep going, we're going to keep pressing. But early on, Magnus just gets a worse position. He has to move his king, and white is winning. So Magnus is going to lose to Wesley So. But it's not that simple. And Magnus, in front of his home crowd in Oslo, Norway, he just keeps playing. He said if it wasn't a home thing, he would have resigned. But he keeps going, he keeps playing, and you've got to play chess. You can get a winning position, but the hardest thing to do is convert it. So we get this position where Magnus is down in exchange. But it's not so simple. It's not so simple. You've got to convert this as Wesley So, and you can harass the pieces. Yes, you've got two rooks, but rooks need the mobility, and Magnus has got black pawns, and the pawns are coming down the board. And yes, this pawn will promote, but now black is winning. Now black is winning because you take the rook, you get the exchange back, but the rook gets in the you take. And although yes, you can sacrifice your rook for the bishop, the black king now takes. And although yes, I'm going to have to sacrifice my rook, my pawn promotes, and when you stop it now, you get checkmated. So it's 1-1. Magnus has forced an Armageddon. And not only does he force an Armageddon, Magnus Carlsen bids 6 minutes and 46 seconds. So Armageddon works where black gets draw odds. You saw Denis Lazavik drew against Alireza Firouzja, and he won that game. But you get less time. So Magnus Carlsen plays a Sicilian defense. He doesn't need to play for a win with the black pieces, but he plays a very combative opening, and we just get going. Now Wesley must win. So seeing a Sicilian is good stuff because it's going to be combative and there's going to be chances for both sides because it's very imbalanced. But you just keep playing and playing, and we trade off pieces, and the more pieces that get traded, the more drawish it looks. The queen comes out, starts harassing some pieces, so Wesley has to look at Magnus's queen. Bloody hell! Like, how do you play chess like this? It's on a7. The only thing it looks like is a fianchetto, but you'd much rather have a bishop. Your queen should be in the center of the board. And Wesley keeps pressing as best as he can, keeps harassing. Magnus at any point takes a draw. You see he's like shuffled his pieces around a bit. His knight was there, it went there, now it's gone back. At any point he takes a draw. So you can't repeat as Wesley, even though the position is drawish. You see they threaten a repetition. Now the knight gets kicked back. Now Wesley looks to rewrite his knight, but now the position is getting slightly better for black, and time is pretty much equalized. Magnus, one of the best blitz players in the world. And now we get this, and now Wesley gets his rook trapped, because although this happens, it's take and the rook is trapped. Wesley gets his rook trapped and has to sacrifice it for the bishop, and now Magnus just converts. We get here, take. The queen's here. Magnus is just up a rook for a bishop, and he's got a nice pawn there on e3. You sacrifice the pawn, queen takes, and Wesley So resigns. Magnus wins. That's all the games I have to show you now. We're going to go into all the results, and I will show you the table. Okay, so now we've been through some of the games. You can see the Champions Chess Tour there. Let's get into all the results. So firstly, round 1. Alireza Firouzja defeats Levon Aronian. Magnus Carlsen defeats Vincent Keymer. Denis Lazavik defeats Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And Jan Nepomniachi, as I showed you, defeats Wesley So. Moving into round 2, that's where some of the interesting things start happening. Wesley So clean sweeps Alireza Firouzja. Denis Lazavik, Vincent Keymer go to Armageddon. I showed you that game. Denis Lazavik coming out with the win. Magnus Carlsen defeats Jan Nepomniachi, a rematch from their 2021 World Championship, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave defeats Levon. You can see it's very much balanced. And finally, round 3. Vincent Keymer defeats Levon, so a lot of tussling in the midfield. Magnus Carlsen wins on demand to force an Armageddon with Wesley So, which he then wins. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Jan Nepomniachi goes to Armageddon, as does Denis Lazavik and Alireza Firouzja. Lazavik coming out with the win there. So now we go into the standings. Magnus Carlsen, Denis Lazavik, both on 3 points. They are chased closely by Jan Nepomniachi, who won 2 of his games, only losing to Magnus Carlsen. Wesley So, MVL, Vincent Keymer and Alireza Firouzja all getting wins today. Levon 0-3. He will need to come back with some sort of miracle in the remaining 4 rounds to try and force himself into that 3 to 6 category. Remember, the top 2 qualify straight to the semis. Finishing number 1 means you pick your opponent. 7 and 8 are eliminated immediately, and 3 until 6 go into the survival stage. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did. Comment on how I can improve these videos, and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me.